Ben Clucas.
Avi, hello.
Our first podcast in English. So for those that can't speak English, they'll have to translate it somehow because I'm not gonna put somebody to translate.
Sounds
Ben
good.
Clucas, I'm very happy to have you here, man. It's been a long time since you haven't driven for us, so this is the closest to E2P that you're gonna be in a few years, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was good times. I missed those days.
Yeah, we'll go over those. The first question for everybody is, who are you and what are you doing here?
Who am I and what am I doing here? That's a very open question. Well, I'm Ben. I've raced, Ben Clucas, raced since I was 9, karting and then cars, and now I professionally coach. I still race and professionally coach in the UK. So that's what I guess that's what I'm doing here.
Is that your biography? Yes.
You want my whole biography?
Let's go a little bit deeper into that because you've raced many things, incredible cars. You've been one of the some years ago one of the stars of British motor racing. You were very close to be a Formula One driver at some point. You've done many different championships. You've raced many different cars. So let's go deeper into that. Let's go when you were younger and karting and single seaters.
Yeah, I'm getting old. I don't remember it all now, but I'll try. So I started go-karting when I was 9 and then sort of progressed through the ranks in the UK and won the British Championships in '99 in juniors. Then progressed to senior karting where I came second in the British Championships. And then I sort of started my car racing from then on. So 2001, I started in Formula Ford in the UK. I won the Formula Ford Championship in 2002. And twice qualified on the front row of the Formula Ford Festival in 2002, 2003. And then we kind of run out of budget sort of halfway through 2003. Up until then, it'd all been sort of family supported. And as we all know, racing is very expensive. At that point, I was quite fortunate. At the end of 2003, I got picked up by Toyota Formula One. So I had a sort of contract with them, part of their driver development program. And I lived in Italy and raced in Italian Formula Renault, where I had several podiums, finished 5th in the championship. That then didn't carry on. So in 2005, I went back to some British F3 in the national classes, it was known, and had a win and some podiums on a sort of part season where I didn't really have the budget. Then we moved to Australia in 2006, and I won the Australian Formula 3 Championship. And then I think after that was when I first started racing with you. So 2006, I raced in Australian Formula 3. So,
then everything collapsed. Huh?
Yeah, everything went backwards from there on. 2006, I raced in Australian Formula 3, which I won, and I also raced in some Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand, which is a really good series over in New Zealand. It's called Formula Toyota. They were very much like Formula Renault cars, to be honest, but with Toyota engines. It's a really good series that still goes today, with plenty of manufacturers putting their drivers in, like Red Bull and stuff, because they race in the winter instead of the summer. So it's like the off season. So it's really good testing. And then at the end of that, I didn't really have a drive. And luckily, a very kind man called Javi Morcillo invited me over for a test in Spain in a Porsche at the beginning of 2007. The test went quite well, and I ended up obviously racing with you guys in Spanish GT and a little bit of GT Open, where we came second in the championship, I think, in Spanish GT.
Yes, correct.
Then 2008, I did FIA GT3 with Jaguar, and a teeny little bit of Australian F3 as well. And then 2009, I was back with you guys again in Spanish GT, and I raced with you guys. Can't remember now. Was it 2009, 2010? Might have been for 5 years straight.
I think so, yeah.
The exact timing. I'd have to look at my own website to remind myself, but 4 or 5 years. And then quite fortunate in 2015, I was picked up by Kia in America. So I raced in something called Pirelli World Challenge for Kia as a factory driver in 2015, which was an amazing experience. We quite often we were on the same bill as IndyCar, so the crowds were huge, sort of 100 to 150,000 crowds, great autograph sessions, factory programs. So Big budget, really good series. Really enjoyed that. And then since that, unfortunately, Kia pulled the plug on the program at the end of 2015. So that then stopped. And then since then, I've really been racing sort of bits and pieces. I've done some Preventic over the years, where I've been they're sort of longer distance races between sort of 12 and 24 hours, typically 3 to 4 drivers in an Audi R8. Done a little bit of Brit car and a Porsche, and just sort of generally just been doing a little bit. I did a little bit of British GT for a round in a Lotus, and just doing bits and pieces here and there, coupled with the coaching that I do in the UK.
Let me go deeper into the single-seater a bit. Put some names that you have raced against in the single-seater area.
Well, in the Formula 4 days, was against people like Oliver Jarvis, which people will have heard of. Chap called Jay Howard, who went on to race in Indy cars. Tom Kimber-Smith, who's went on to race in the American Le Mans series and stuff. Guy called Marco Asma, which people may or may not have heard of, who won British F3. And then when I was with Toyota, I was racing against people like Kamui Kobayashi, who was my teammate, who obviously went on to F1. Pastor Maldonado, who lots of people have heard about, who obviously
have you crashed with Maldonado?
He was actually, I have to say, to be fair to him, he was very good. He didn't crash very often.
You haven't crashed to Maldonado. It's you that haven't crashed Maldonado.
I don't think I've crashed into him. No, I don't think so. That's unfortunately not. So yeah, he raced in Italian Renault. Felipe, a guy called Felipe raced, who's won GP2 races. Salvador Duran, who raced against us, I think he's won the Rolex 24. Raced against Mike Conway back in the Formula 4 days, who's obviously works Toyota driver. So yeah, there's probably quite a few I've forgotten along the way.
Yeah.
But
I was bringing this up to make a point on people that doesn't know you, on what your level of driving is, because nowadays winning a championship is maybe easy in some championships. So it doesn't really tell the story that you have won the Formula 4, Formula 3, and so on. It doesn't make a picture right. It means you should have or should have been or could have been in Formula 1. Is that a proper statement, or am I wrong?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to say that. You could say that about lots of drivers. As we all know, we know lots of good drivers that have made it to various levels. Some drivers who maybe we don't think are so good that have maybe made it further than we thought they would do, and other drivers we know that are really good who maybe not made it as far. So I think it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say that, and also you don't know when you get up to that level, how you deal with the pressure and other things. So I'd certainly like to think I should have made it maybe further than I did, but I think it would be. I certainly wouldn't want to say that I should have made F1 anyway. Put it that way.
But well, you were in the Toyota Formula 1 program of younger drivers. Is it frustrating for you now, or you don't give a shit? You happy with your life?
I mean, I'm happy with my life in terms of I love my wife Christina and my daughter Eva. It's slightly frustrating by the fact that I certainly feel like I should be a genuine, regular professional driver earning the bulk of my living from racing cars. But at the same time, I have a great life. I coach with some great customers who I enjoy spending time with, and I'm still getting to do almost every day, except when coronavirus is with us, every day doing what I love doing. So yeah, certainly. I mean, it's like anyone, obviously slight frustrations that perhaps I haven't made it quite where I wanted to make it, but then at the same time realizing that I'm quite lucky, and there's a lot of people doing jobs that they hate doing it. So at least I'm doing a job that it's something I'm passionate about.
You have a great CV, and you've driven professionally and for some makes and for Escuela Española de Pilotos as well.
Well, that was the highlight.
Probably the highlight of your career.
That was the pinnacle, mate. The pinnacle. when we made that seat and you wrote "Princess" on it, that was the highlight of my career.
Yeah, we call you, people don't know, but we called you Princess Clucas because you were so very delicate with all your things. You needed your water and your seat perfect and your mirrors correctly, and everything should be.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a moaner. Is what we get at. I reckon I've got better with age, though. I don't reckon I'm so worried about that sort of things now.
we train you to be.
True.
Let's talk about cars. Of those many cars, and well, you've driven, I think, barely every single race car in the world, because I see you in your media testing with some classic cars, Can-Am cars, very old race cars from the 30s. You've driven basically everything that is on four wheels. Tell me about it. Tell me what cars you like more than the others, and which you hate, and why.
I do love the historic cars, actually, because when you're on the cross-ply tires, you feel like a bit of a hero. You can be doing 30, 40 miles an hour sideways, very much in control, but looking spectacular. So that's quite cool. And I love the fact that as well with those cars, it's quite a different technique. You really have to get on the throttle and turn the car on the throttle. So I do really enjoy the historic cars. In terms of what cars I love driving, I love, actually, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I really love driving that Porsche we raced, the 997 Porsche in 2007, because that was really good fun, because it was before the paddle shift, obviously no ABS. The car moved around quite a lot, so you really had to use the brakes to turn the car on the way into the corner, but then as you picked up the power mid-corner, it snapped into oversteer, but in quite a controllable way. That was really good fun. In terms of cars I don't like, I think I would say most cars I like. It's very rare that I get in a car and think I don't like driving this around a racetrack. The only thing I would say is I don't like the sort of proliferation of electronics. So obviously now with the modern cars, more and more are taking a bit away from the driver. So when you're starting to have race cars with electronic stability control and stuff like that, I don't really like that. I want to be the main person in control. And okay, ABS is okay. I don't mind that, but I'd rather, have as little driver aids as possible, really.
And between something like a Formula 3 car, you have to go on rails and do a perfect corner, or a GT, you opposite lock, you rather be opposite locking and overdriving, or you like the purity of a Formula 3 car, for example?
Well, you looking at your onboard, you definitely like oversteer more than I do.
Oh no, I do. I definitely do. Yeah, no, my answer is very clear. Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of oversteer. So even when I race it or drive a GT car, I don't really have it oversteering that much. I think it's difficult because I did love Formula 3 when I drove it. There's so much grip, so much speed. And just turning into some of those corners, going that fast, is just a amazing feeling. I remember when I did an Indy Pro Series test, which I didn't mention earlier, on the ovals, and the speed and the grip is just ridiculous, almost scary. But I do think I do like, maybe it's just because I've done that now for the last sort of 10, 12 years, but I do like the GT cars really moving around a bit and having a bit of movement and oversteer and a bit of body roll. I do quite enjoy that now, probably more than a downforce car. Plus, if you do a downforce car, you have to be really fit, and I'm probably not fit enough now.
And is there a car you don't want to drive? Is there ever been a car you've driven and said, "No, I'm stopping and I don't drive this anymore"?
Not really. I don't want to say in case I get asked to drive one again. No, I wouldn't say so. Not really. Most at the end of the day, I think like most racing drivers, if you get the opportunity to drive a car on a track, you take it, don't you? So,
no, not even for safety reasons or anything?
No, definitely not. I have driven, obviously, especially with the coaching, quite often I'm jumping into a car with the seat not right. The belts sometimes don't even do up tight enough on me. And you're, occasionally if the car's not prepared properly, you're jumping into cars that are questionable. But I still, not really on safety reasons, no. The only time, I'd never say I've not driven a car. Only maybe if you drive something that has obviously got something wrong with it and it's moving around on the brakes or something like that. But no, not really. Generally not.
Okay. What's the best racing car you've driven? Which one is the one you love more? Fastest?
Well, I don't know about the fastest I've driven. Is in terms of, it depends what you mean. In terms of a lap time, it would probably be a Formula 3 car or maybe the Indy Pro Series car. In terms of down the straights, the V8 supercar in Australia that I tested, and I raced one of those, were pretty quick down the straights. But in terms of the most fun, I would honestly, genuinely think it was that Porsche we raced together in not together, but I raced in your team in 2007. Because that was just, maybe it was just because it was my first year of GTs, I don't know. But like I said before, no ABS, it moved around so much when you pick up the power. You were dealing with oversteer coming out of every corner, but in a quite light, controllable way. Really having to work the car on the way into the corner to get the front to grip. I really enjoyed that. And actually, I drove last year. I raced the modern Cup car, and that just didn't seem as fun as the ones back from 2007.
Yeah, I agree. How about touring cars? Because you've been in the States driving for Kia as a works driver. That was basically a touring car, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was basically a 400 horsepower front-wheel drive touring car.
How about that?
Yeah, I mean they tended to understeer. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love driving it. And in terms of the whole package and the season, it was one of the most fun season I've ever had, if not the most. But in terms of the out-and-out driving, I think generally speaking, rear-wheel drive's more fun than front-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive tends to understeer, and also in a race situation, as the race progresses and you start losing the front tire, you're just starting to really get more and more understeer, which is just really requiring you to be patient rather than being able to do too much. Obviously trying to maybe carry a bit more trail braking into the corners as well, but generally speaking, you just end up having to be more and more patient, which isn't necessarily that fun.
And the worst car you've ever driven?
The worst car I've ever driven? I don't know. I've driven a lot of cars. Yeah, Chris, my wife's shouting her old Rover that broke down on the way when we swapped cars that time for that race.
I drove that car to England. Yeah. I exchanged that car with you for a brand new Honda Civic very old Rover.
That was a good deal. So obviously most people won't know the story, but basically Javi one year was racing in England the same weekend I was racing in Spain. And there was an ash cloud. It was in Iceland, wasn't it, the ash cloud? So we were both going on the same journey. So we decided to swap cars halfway through. So I at the time was driving a very, very old banged out Rover 25. And Javier had a lovely brand new Honda Civic. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in the middle of Europe, we swapped cars. And I got a very good upgrade. And he got a very bad downgrade. And then just to make matters worse, at the end of the race weekend, the ash cloud was still there, so we had to do it all anyway.
I will remember that car, yeah, very well.
I remember that it broke down on the way home after you'd given it back to me at the Channel Tunnel. So that's the worst car I've ever driven.
I can agree, yeah, me too. What's the best driver you've raced against, and why? But I'm not meaning about maybe what he's done after or whatever. Somebody that really got your attention on being really good at something, or somebody that has really impressed you on his driving.
For me, I would say the fastest person I've ever raced against was Kamui Kobayashi, the Japanese who went on to make F1. Because I remember, I mean, that year we were all living in the same apartments. We were testing a lot because obviously budgets were, very big with Toyota's involvement. And, some days he was just, he was very, at the time, I mean, he was very young. He was 16, 17. So he was obviously a little bit inconsistent, but some days he was just absolutely insanely fast. So he was certainly the fastest, I would say, I've ever come across when I've been driving.
Good. And did you have any idols, or you have some driver you used to adore, or maybe now?
You have, yeah. I've always
apart from me, obviously. Apart from me.
Not really. I'm not. To be honest, I'm not big into idols. Full stop. In any walk of life. So no, not really. I mean, obviously, you respect what people have achieved, but no, I don't really idolize anyone, to be honest. Is that bad?
No, it's personal. There's something quite fun. It's you now do motorbike racing.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, because that's very strange for a racing.
Well, I just wanted a new challenge. Basically, I used to, when I was a little bit younger, I used to love doing those little mini motos, the tiny motorbikes with my friends. So there was only one place we found that did it in the UK, and we used to go there like whatever every month or something with my friends. And then once my racing with Kia finished at the end of 2015, I didn't have a contract. So when I raced with Kia, my contract stated I shouldn't really do extreme sports and stuff, and I obviously didn't want to injure myself. And then because I was racing a little bit less, I wanted to race the.
I assume extreme sports did not include the football PlayStation thing you used to do. Huh?
No, that did not. No. 56th in the world, don't forget.
Yeah, that's something you should not talk about. Huh? It's not. You think it's good, but it's actually bad to be the
certainly not good
better in the world.
Certainly not good with women, is it? That's for sure. So yeah, so I always wanted to race those mini motos just for fun, really. But then I looked into it, and there wasn't really big grids. So I eventually found this thing called pit bike racing, which is about half the size of a normal motorbike, a supermoto sort of bike. And the grids were huge, like 60, 65 on a grid. Big championship, 10 weekends, and the racing I wasn't doing as much car racing at the time, and I could. So I thought, well, if I got injured, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. So, and I spend coaching, a lot of my the coaching I do is for Caterham drivers who have sort of a ladder in motorsports. They have a sort of Caterham Academy, which is the first lung, Caterham Road Sport, Caterham 270R, and so on. And quite often when I'm with a new customer from Caterham Academy, I'm like, well, how did you get involved in this? And he said, and they always say, quite often they'll say, oh, I just saw it and thought I'd give it a go. And I was getting older, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. So I bought all the equipment, started off, and I was like, I was so bad. I was like, out of 65, I was like 65th. I was like last. And Christina, my wife, came with me for race weekend and was like, this is embarrassing. But eventually,
and that's the one that loves you. Imagine the rest of the people.
Exactly. That was probably her sugarcoating it. It's probably worse than that. But I tend not to give up on things, so I just kept on it, kept doing it, and I got better and better. And now, I mean, I'm definitely not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but now I'm top 10, top 5. I've had a race win. I actually came second and third in the championships last year.
Wow.
I'm not probably as good as that. In reality, I'm probably about 4th or 5th, but I was quite consistent and got a little bit lucky in certain things. But yeah, so I am now genuinely can be top 5 to 7. So I've got a lot, and it gives me something. It's good. I like it. It's a new skill.
Get some technical things. I mean, is there anything to take from cars to that, or is it a blank page?
I think the principle's the same. Obviously, you brake late. You know, you're trying to get on the throttle quickly, but there's just so much more to bike racing for me, and it just hurts. Like when you fall off, it really hurts. So like with car racing, like especially when you get to a certain level of experience, you know, generally most of the time you miss an apex, don't you? You don't even crash. It's very rare you spin. If you do spin, you hopefully don't hit anything and you don't get hurt at all. But with bike racing, you know, you go into a corner a tiny bit too fast and you don't miss an apex, you fall flat on your face. So it's hard to get up. It's hard to get to the level of like the really quick guys. And so like the standard I'm at the moment, I'm still definitely not up with the quick guys. And the only way I can see, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there because they've obviously been doing it since they were, you know, like me with karts since 9, 10. But the only way you can really get there, seems to me, is just crashing all the time. And I'm not sure I'm at 36 years old. I don't know if I can do it.
It's funny because when you spoke about this with me years ago, you said it's very difficult because you add one more axis to the equation. You have to lean as well of everything else, so it's really complicated for the mind and so on. I found that very interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting as well. I tell you what, it helped me a lot with my coaching as well, because when you're coaching and you've done something for 15, 20 years, a lot of the basics are very easy. So when you're coaching someone and they can't do some of the basics, it's very easy to be like, what are you doing? This is easy. And I think it all comes down to mental capacity. So like when you drive a car or I drive a car, you don't actually have to use anything like 100% mental capacity. You might only be using 50, 40, 30% mental capacity, which gives you a lot of time to think about other things when you're racing, what's going on with racing, car setup, whatever it might be. But when I'm racing, when I'm on my motorbike, like I am 100% maxed out to ride at 50 miles an hour.
Just not to crash, huh?
Exactly, and to try not to crash. So, and it was really interesting because like I would do really stupid things, and I wouldn't even better look at my lap times at the end of the lap because I was just absolutely maxed out. So it gave me a lot more empathy for my customers when I'm coaching, when I'm like, oh, did you see this or did you see that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, how did you not see it? But then you suddenly realize that when you're doing something new, and like we said with the bikes as well, an extra axis as well, having to think of your lean angle and stuff, it just makes you realize how hard doing something new actually is, and trying your best to do it to a high level. I really enjoyed it, actually. Really enjoyed it.
That's interesting. Sim racing. Are you? Do you like it? Do you believe it's interesting? No. Sim racing. What do you think?
I like it, and actually, obviously, with the current lockdown measures in a lot of the world, obviously, I've seen a lot of people doing it, and I would like to get more involved in it. But for me at the moment, now is probably not the time to spend a load of money on some sim gear with 3 people to support at home. And also, I have a young family, as obviously you do as well, and it doesn't leave me a lot of time to do that sort of thing. But I definitely think it's interesting. And I tell you, I did work on the Nissan GT Academy, where they basically took sim racers like Jan Mardenborough, who's obviously a good driver now, and several other drivers, I think, onto real racing. And I sort of worked as one of the instructors on the show with the drivers at the beginning, when they were trying to, whittle it down from 25 sim racers to 1 driver that they were then going to support. And you definitely 100% notice a difference between a sim racer who starts off on a real racetrack versus just normal person that starts on a racetrack. The sim racers were very, very good right from the beginning. And I was quite skeptical, to be honest, to begin with. And I was definitely surprised by how much of a difference it made.
But the question is it motorsport or not?
Well, I mean, I would say, I'm probably going to get shot by loads of people for this, but I would say no.
Nobody has answered yes at the minute. We've run already 20 people to this podcast, and not one single person has answered yes.
I think, I mean, at the end of the day, it goes back to like what I just said about the motorbike racing. So if I crash my motorbike, it hurts. If I go off in a car and crash, it hurts. If you're in a simulator, nothing happens if you crash. Nothing. And I think whatever sport you watch, whether you're watching, a marathon runner or a motor racing driver, it's got that element of hard. Something happens. If you race, like I said, it hurts. If you're a marathon racer, you can get injuries, or you're pushing your body to the absolute limit. And with sim racing, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's highly skilled, the guys that are doing well at it, but I wouldn't class it as motorsport myself.
Front wheel drive or rear wheel drive? There is a correct
100%
answer.
rear wheel drive. Rear wheel drive.
Yeah, we have one of my instructors answering front wheel drive, and this question is only dedicated to him to understand that he is wrong.
But I would be happy to race both. Let me just clarify.
Yeah. Paddle shift or H pattern?
Oh, that's a difficult
or sequential one.
I'm getting lazy now. I mean, it's definitely with an H pattern. I'm going to go H pattern just because it's easier to make an advantage if you have to heel and toe.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Just because it's easier to make an advantage on other drivers, especially young ones who can only left foot brake nowadays. They have to heel and toe.
Turbo or not naturally aspirated?
I don't really mind either way. Naturally aspirated.
Good answer. Nicest experience driving? The best moment on your life at the wheel?
Oh, there's 2. It's hard to pick one. I'll probably go with Australian F3 when I got a drive-through penalty in the wet, and I started the last lap in 3rd at Phillip Island. That
race is in YouTube, and we're gonna put it in the text in this video. So yeah,
I won. I think I won by 6,000ths or 600ths. I don't remember, over the line. That was a pretty good moment. That was probably the best moment, I think.
Yeah. What other option you had in mind? You were going to say.
Well, something. The other one will sound a bit weird, but when I raced for Kia in the States, the first race weekend, obviously, I felt quite a bit of pressure. I was rocking up. Never raced for a Kia manufacturer before. I'd only raced a little bit in America. And the first race I finished, qualified quite badly, 9th, 10th. First race I finished 5th. And then the second race I started like 10th again, and it was wet. And I went all the way up to 2nd. And I wasn't actually that far off the win in the end. And that was just a mega feeling, because obviously you rock up with a new team, you feel a bit of pressure, feel like you need to prove yourself. The previous day hadn't gone very well, and then to finish 2nd, almost winning, was a mega feeling. I think I'll go with the F3 one.
And the worst experience?
Worst experience? Oh, probably being kicked out of Toyota Formula One. I've been told that my contract wasn't going to be renewed.
Is there a moment on that? A specific moment?
Yeah, you get invited. Basically, you get, there was meetings throughout the year with the head of the motorsport development program, and then somewhere near the end of the year, you get called into the office and told that you're not going to have your contract renewed. So that was quite a bad moment.
You want a coffee? Yes. We're not going to renew you. Yeah, bye.
Yeah.
Is this it's like this, or is there a bit of?
Well, I mean, I've got to be honest, it's not something that I've particularly held dear in my memory, so I can't remember it.
Good attitude.
I think it was along the lines of, you haven't done a good enough job, we won't be renewing your contract, something like that, but maybe a little bit politer.
Imaginary, because I know you, imaginary blank check to buy one car, only one car for the rest of your life. What car would you buy? I know you are not into road cars, but
a road. Oh, you mean a road car?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. Ferrari F40.
Oh, you have an answer for this. I was expecting from you saying I don't give a shit about road cars.
Well, I don't really give a shit about road cars, but the only car I do love is a Ferrari F40.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're alive. Good.
Because when I was a kid, I used to have one, and I used to play with it. I used to love them. Plus, I almost drove one once, and the customer blew it up before I got a chance.
Oh. Best circuit?
I thought you'd probably ask this. I don't know. It's either Road America or Spa. I'm going to go with Road America because everyone goes with Spa, so I'll go with Road America.
Road America. That's good, because you know many of the circuits in the world, no?
Yeah, I've raced in Japan, Australia, obviously a lot of Europe and America. But Road America, I mean, it's like any racing driver. You always like ones you go well at, don't you? So, I mean, it's a mega circuit, and I tend to go quite well there. So it's kind of a good combination for me.
I consider you to have 1 hour in any circuit of the world with any car of the world. Which circuit and which car would you choose?
Well, I'd go Road America because I just said I love it. Car. I don't know. I'll probably go for that Porsche. Go for a cup car. Either the old one that we raced together in 2007, or a modern one.
Really, you wouldn't go for Formula One or LMP1 car or something like that?
Nah.
Why?
I think the problem with the Formula One car is you wouldn't be on the limit, would you? You're not going to get on the limit in an hour, whereas you can get in a cup car and drive on the limit pretty quickly. I mean, I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. I hadn't thought about Formula
Very
One.
boring
Maybe you're
answer,
right.
Man. Very
I should change it. I should change it to Formula One. You're right. Actually, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it to Formula One car at Road America. There you go.
Okay. Good enough. And suddenly I have a big sponsorship deal for you for one championship 1 year. Which championship would you race? Any in the world?
Well, can I have like 2 or 3 years?
No, just one. And I'm expecting a very boring answer from you.
Well, if I had a load of money, I would race. Well, I'd want to include Le Mans though. I'd have to do Le Mans as well. But
yeah, okay.
I would want to do World Super Cup, supporting the F1.
Good.
But the reason I need a few years is because you can't just jump into Super Cup and be competitive. So I need to do a year or two of Carrera Cup first, then Super.
Don't worry. It's just 1 year deal. That's it. So
well, I'll just
it doesn't matter how you perform. You can be last.
I'll do Super Cup and run round at the back
then. What's the most extreme experience you've had in racing?
Extreme experience? What do you mean by that?
Like, for example, the test you did in an oval in the States, or something that really took you out of your comfort zone.
Actually, yeah, that one you just said, that's probably the only time I've ever driven a racing car and been scared. So yeah, probably the Indy Pro Series test. That was just, I think the average speed was 187 miles an hour. I'm not sure what the top speed was, and just obviously walls everywhere, and I didn't realize up until that point how bumpy the ovals were. I mean, I don't know if they're all like this, but I tested at Homestead, and it's really, really bumpy. And when you're doing like 190 miles an hour, whatever it is, and your head's like going all over the place, and you have to almost hold your head against the side of the cockpit because you can't physically hold your head up. And the closing speeds when someone goes in the pits is insane. As soon as someone lifts off the throttle and you're doing 190 miles an hour. So I guess, I mean, obviously I've never raced Formula One or driven a proper Formula One car, so maybe it's similar. It must be even worse in Formula One, but that was the only time I was genuinely a little bit scared. Most of the time you're not scared in a race car, are you? But that I was like, if I crash here, this could be bad.
Actually, I remember you said, thank you, but I'm not doing this anymore, or something like that.
Well, actually, I had a sponsor. I was supposed to be sponsored for that season, and the sponsor went under in Australia. So it wasn't a case of that. But I must admit, if I had to make that decision, I don't know what I would have done. Because, like I say, it was scary. And I know from some other drivers who've raced Indy cars and stuff. And I think, to be honest with you, the majority of people are scared of the ovals. It's not a particularly pleasant experience. It's just look at the walls, and I mean, it's even worse. I mean, I've raced around street circuits in F3 and stuff, and that just doesn't seem scary. But when you're doing that speed and you just got walls everywhere, I don't know, it's just scary.
Helmet. Your helmet was white for most of your career.
Well, it was white up until 2007, 2008-ish or something.
You won Formula 3, you won Formula 4, you won many important championships with the white helmet.
Well, I had no money. Well, I wasn't going to waste. I wasn't going to waste several £100 on a helmet. I mean, when I did the Formula Ford Festival in 2002, 2003, I had to earn that money from Silverstone Race School. It took a lot of earning from Silverstone Race School to pay for a Formula Ford Festival. So I wasn't going to be painting my helmet. No, not in the early days.
And then you finally had a design which is, again, very peculiar.
Peculiar or boring?
Helmet. No, I don't find it boring. I find it actually very different, very recognizable. You have a very specific colors. So please explain that a little bit.
Well, you want to see it?
Yeah.
Right, well, basically, obviously I'm ginger, and my whole life I've been taking the piss out of for being ginger. So when I needed to have a helmet design, I thought, right, I'm going to have a ginger top. So that was what this was supposed to be, the ginger top. And then initially when I designed it, it was going to be a ginger top and just white. And I just thought it looked a bit rubbish. So that's where the matte black came from. And then up until this, my helmet's actually changed this year, as we discussed earlier. My helmet's changed. So it used to literally just be ginger top, and then I thought ginger top and black looked a bit boring. So then I ended up just putting some squares around the bottom, and that was it really. But then this year I thought I've been very sad with my motorbike racing, and about 7 or 8 of my friends, we've all got matching leathers. I've got my helmet painted and all the rest of it. I thought, what I'm doing, I'm just going to get my car racing helmet painted. So this year I've gone for a slightly more complicated design, but still obviously ginger and orange and black. And then I've got my daughter's and wife's initials in the back, just to be a little bit sentimental. So that's my helmet.
And not this question we do after the first podcast, because one of my instructors, Chema, has a mustache in his helmet to offend a Portuguese woman.
Right.
So my question is that there's no intention to offend any country or religion or anything in your helmet, no?
No, I'm afraid not. No, I'm very unoffensive. Sorry. I think when you're trying to sort of beg, steal, and borrow drives your entire life, it's a good idea to offend as little people as possible.
Maybe it's a good advice. And to end this up, if somebody, because these podcasts are designed for people now being bored and watching this thing, and to motivate them to be in motor racing somehow. We've interviewed many people, different works all around motorsport. So what would be your advice for somebody that is watching this and saying, oh, how cool Ben's life is, and what should I do to be like that? Advice.
I can't believe there's many people at home saying, what can I do to be like Ben? But
neither me, but
I'd say, first of all, don't think like that. Well, I mean, obviously, like anything, it depends on your budget, but I'd say either two things. Either, like you mentioned, the sim racing, start off doing that, because that definitely gives you a better base if you do go on to do sort of, I was going to say proper racing, but I didn't want to insult people. But if you go on to do more normal racing, so that's very good, and obviously something you can do relatively cheaply in your living room. Other than that, just start karting. I mean, even if let's be honest, to do any kind of motorsport costs money, but if you can get a go-kart yourself, just a second-hand, rubbish go-kart, whatever you can get, just to go out on the track and do laps, you're naturally going to get better, aren't you? So that would be the first two things I would say. Either try and do a bit of sim racing, because actually you can be a professional sim racer now, as we all know. Or if you want to do like more mainstream motorsport, or whatever you want to call it, get yourself a go-kart, get down some tracks, and just start from there and do lots and lots of laps. It's like any sport, isn't it? It's practice. So karting is a great training tool. So that's where I would start first of all. Just
do something, huh? Just, if you like motor racing, do something.
Yeah. Get involved in some way. And there's lots, even there's lots of relatively cheap racing out there. I know no racing's cheap, but you can get involved in some way or another, and just enjoy yourself to start with, and then see where it goes.
Mega. It's a pleasure, man, to have you here. I'd rather have you in the race car instead of in the iPad, but it's as good as it gets now. So yeah. We really hope to see you soon back in Spain racing, and whinging about mirrors and seats and all these things.
I mean, I just whinge a bit more just to play up to it now, just for you.
It would be a pleasure.
Good. I hope so, mate. Hope it happens again soon.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the racetrack, which is where we should be.
Okay. Cheers, mate. See you soon.